All right, folks, it is May 6th, 2026. And of course, that means that on today being Wednesday afternoon, or Wednesday morning, I should say, it is time for us to look at the news around the world and to hear what folks are saying about the news around the world and along those lines. Hantavirus race to trace contacts. So, unnerving Gurney photo shows suspected hantavirus patient evacuated from a doomed cruise ship in the Netherlands. So, definitely that's what some folks are talking about. And this is apparently, according to Atlantic, a brutal first for the cruise industry. So, what to know about the hantavirus outbreak on an Atlantic cruise ship? What the New York Times is reporting. Russia Ukraine's unilateral ceasefire, firing dozens of drones. So, on the eve of a proposed ceasefire, Russia launches a huge attack on Ukraine. Ukraine declares it is not bound by Russia's Victory Day truce. Russia rip into Ukrainian cities and all along those lines. Japan and Philippines on a transfer of Akabama. So Japan fires missile in joint drill with and allies in northern Philippines role in South China Sea in a post-war pivot. So Japan and Philippines agreed to a weapon coercive activities cause alarm. Abbas Aragachi meets China's Wang Yi in Beijing. So definitely in talks with Iran. China calls for opening of Iran a week before Trump's Beijing calling for an end to the U.S.-Iran war. So definitely that is something that folks are talking about as well. Bodies from the rubble in Gaza, 8,000 bodies rubble as less than 1% has been cleared, according to a report from Andela. In the TRD world, Gaza's open grave, 8,000 bodies remain trapped as rubble clearance stagnates. So that is definitely something that people are talking about in the Middle East. French container ship attacked in the Strait of Hormuz. CGM container ship in the Strait of Hormuz, injuring crew. U.S. prices have hit their highest level in years, so that's definitely something that folks are paying attention to. It is definitely impacting travel for a number of folks. Dangerous escalation. World condemns Iran after attacks on UAE. U.S.-Iran truce teeters on meltdown as stalemate takes toll on each side. UAE comes under Iranian attacks for second consecutive, and Iran's attacks on Fujairah matters for energy markets. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. So definitely lots going on in the world, and always glad to be reporting that here on Pod TV and all along those lines. Australian families are linked to ISIS attempt to return home. Is families in is families in Syria have booked tickets to Australia. Minister says Australian woman with alleged these charges on return from Syria. Charges flagged as woman and to Australia. So definitely that is something going on, and there are arrests planned when ISIS-linked families return to Australia. The 9 involvement Sudan airport attack, UAE of orchestrating drone attacks on airport. Is blaming Ethiopia and UAE for recent drone attacks, and definitely folks are asking what we should know about these attacks as well. Armenia hosts a historic European Union summit as the country charts a course away from its past direction and all along those lines. So definitely there's a lot going on in that space, and definitely joint declaration following the first Armenia EU summit. European leaders are converged on Armenia as Russia looks on. So definitely lots of talks going on in that space. Zelensky warns of a mirror response after Russian strike kills a rescuer in Poltava. So that is something that folks are talking about as well. And the Romania government, Romanian socialists and far right toppled government. Romania prime minister was ousted in a no confidence vote, and definitely looks like Romania's pro-European coalition collapsed after Prime Minister fails a no confidence vote. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. A lot going on in that part of the world also. So no matter where you are in the world, there's a lot of news stories that are being covered and a lot of things that people are trying to figure out about these various news stories and all along those lines. So we'll be definitely seeing what's going on in that space and what folks have to say about a number of these stories. So the lapses after that prime minister failed his vote. And of course, there's still that talk about U.S. withdrawal of troops from Germany. German defense minister laments long-range strike gap caused by the planned U.S. withdrawal. European leaders see Trump's troop drawdown from Germany as a new proof they must go it alone. Germany chancellor is downplays row with Trump after Trump drawdown announced. So the loss of 5,000 U.S. troops in Germany is just the tip of the challenge facing Europe. And having some friends in Secretary, I know that they do a lot for the economy in those countries as well. So it'll probably be an economic impact also. Almost a third of Germans back AFD as far right hits new highs. So stuck in the mud 1 year on, Friedrich Merz is struggling to find his footing. So there's even stories of talking about the incredible shrinking German chancellor. I guess he's losing more and more power. But Merz is ruling out a minority government election as the coalition stalls. Taiwan's president says state visits are basic rights after a trip he says Beijing tried to block. So he said that Beijing tried to block that and all along those lines, but that did not happen. And China condemned Eswatini for being kept and fed by Taiwan in travel row. While the Taiwanese president arrived, then announced diplomacy has infuriated China. So Taiwan's Lei returns from Eswatini trip amid China's objections. And how 10 minutes of bombing by Israel tore through Lebanon. Families in Lebanon are still searching rubble for loved ones killed in a day of Israeli strikes. So defending from the goal of isn't enough, IDF entrenches grip in southern Lebanon. So that's something people are talking about. Middle East states. Counterterrorism police are investigating arson at a former London synagogue. So 2 arrested in arson attack on a memorial wall for Iranians killed by the IRGC in London's Golders Green. Police are investigating suspected arson attack at a former synagogue in East London. Counterterrorism investigation is definitely going on in that part of the world and all along those lines. Trump orders the military to pause for a mission to allow time for peace talks. So Trump's Project Freedom, another example of strategic incoherence. So that's what the Hill was reporting and all along those lines. And like I said earlier, oil prices have dropped after Trump hails great progress in the Iran talks. So we'll see what this great progress is and all along those lines. And of course, we did have that debate in California that was taking place. 7 candidates spar in the California gubernatorial debate on CNN. And we're going to see what that was all like. It says it was a feisty debate. Would-be governors assess the incumbent, but I guess also tried to make their case for being the governor of that particular area. I would bring in Rick Rosner and see what he says, and if you watch that debate, and any thoughts that he has about the debate and how the debate went.
I didn't watch,
Okay.
but yeah, we've got our absentee ballots or our vote by mail stuff, and we'll figure it out in the next couple of days. So oil, $96 a barrel, down from 102 yesterday, I guess.
Oh,
Gas 453 national average, the highest it's been in 4 years.
Well, it looks like the Democrats won big in U.S. special elections. I know that even though I'm in North Carolina, I've been getting commercials on one of my networks. I think it's FUBU for Ohio, and I didn't see who won in those races, but it does look like Trump reinforced his hold on the GOP, but it looks like there were some races in Indiana and Ohio, because they said Trump endorsed candidates defeat incumbent Indiana Republicans, and Trump got some revenge and there might have been some other takeaways from Tuesday's Indiana and Ohio primaries. But they did say Trump-backed candidates dominate Indiana elections after incumbents opposed redistricting. So,
Right.
also,
I mean, for people who don't support Trump, it remains mysterious how people can support him, given that he is. I mean, the main campaign promise he fulfilled is to shut down the southern border. Beyond that, he's kind of anyway.
He's kind of like not doing things in that space. I did see, and maybe Kim will join us later, and I'm not sure what's going on with her series, but I did see that a major part of the Trump past administration in a closed door interview. So Trump's past Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick be testifying on these ties that he had, but maybe also the ones that Trump had as well, because he's supposed to be testifying on
Lutnick took his
U.S. House panel. So
Trump never visited Epstein Island. Neither did Bill Clinton. They flew on Epstein's plane a bunch, but that rich people like getting free plane rides. You get rent a private plane costs tens of thousands of dollars. If this guy's going to throw free plane trips at you, you're going to take them. Lutnick, however, took his family on vacation to Epstein Island.
Wow.
Again, because people like getting free stuff.
Oh yeah, free stuff is wonderful, and the great thing about free stuff is this: you get it free. Sometimes you don't even take it. I had an opportunity to go to a free concert, comedy concert this past weekend, but had other things come up, and that did not make the free concert, even though I was given opportunities for a free ticket, but it was not.
Yeah,
I didn't see the physical version of the free ticket, so I passed and everything. But hopefully, I'll get some free tickets to some of our Broadway shows.
I doubt that Epstein's friends paid taxes on the free stuff they got from Epstein. But like if you get nominated for an Oscar, or if you present at the Oscars, there's a swag bag that might have stuff in it worth up to $250,000. And there's a lot of, I think you can pick and choose what you take and don't take, because if you take the whole bag, you've got a bunch of stuff that that you may or may not use, like $10,000 off on like cosmetic surgery and stuff like that. So, or a diamond tennis bracelet that they tell you is worth $12,000. And if you take this stuff, you are on the hook for paying taxes on it. Mm-hmm. Like if you win a car on a game show, you have to pay taxes on the value of that car. So some people turn around and sell the car. Some, there are some people who just don't want a deal and they don't accept the prize.
They don't accept the prize at all, even though it might be a fancy car. I think I was watching The Price is Right, the new version, yesterday. Yeah, I think it was yesterday I was watching that. But apparently Jeff Bezos is in trouble, and all along those lines, because he's talking about firing a bunch of workers at Amazon, but he spent a lot of money on a penthouse and on a Met Gala ticket, and a bunch of other things. So people are getting on his case because of the amount of money that he spent, and all along those lines, versus what is he's been at Amazon.
Yeah. So I mean, what the last 6 years have shown is that these billionaires, these tech billionaires, aren't necessarily nicer or smarter than the rest of us. You give somebody $100-200 billion, and that doesn't make Bezos particularly nice to his workers. And he's gonna, he traded in his wife for a hotter version of his wife. His ex-wife and Lauren Sanchez, his fiance, they look pretty similar, except Lauren Sanchez, she's more vavavoomey. They're human, and that's not always a good thing.
It's not always a good thing. I was actually watching earlier today a rerun of an Andy Griffin clip, and that's what they were talking about. The woman, Andy was saying that the woman had been treated well by nature and everything like that, and the women of Mayberry were upset at this particular woman because they were afraid that she might just steal their husbands and everything like that. So it was a kind of funny clip and all along those lines. I was watching that earlier today, and she mistook his actions as a proposal. So like I said, it was kind of a funny episode to watch, just a little side there and everything like that. But apparently Pete Hetches, coming back to the news, is in the news because of his minister. So Pete Hetches, pastor, is making shocking claims. So an Idaho preacher at the center of a growing church-state controversy has argued that women should not vote. Catholic processions should be banned, and the U.S. war with Iran is a righteous Christian cause. So apparently still Defense Secretary Pete Hetches has continued to welcome him, but Pastor Doug Wilson first drew national attention during a CNN interview in August 2025 when the 72-year-old founder of the Communion of Reformed Evangelical Church made remarks that drew widespread criticism. Wilson said, women are the kind of people that people come out of. He added, the wife and mother, who is the chief executive of the home, is entrusted with 3 or 4 or 5 eternal souls. The remark reflected long-held views. Wilson has advocated for a patriarchal society in which women submit to their husbands and has supported repealing the 19th Amendment. Women are barred from leadership roles in his church and cannot vote in congregational decisions. So it looks like, just like there's pushback on the Voting Rights Act, he would like to see a pushback on women's rights and everything.
Yeah, all right. We would, I think, most Americans want the people in charge to not have lunatic beliefs.
Right.
But Hegseth has been gotten in trouble before. He was taken off of a security detail because he has white supremacist, white nationalist tattoos.
Wow.
And they thought the people in charge of the security detail thought that made him a security risk. He never intended to become, he didn't train for it to become head of the Department of War. He never advanced past major. He was in and out of the military. He didn't take the classes, the training that you're supposed to have to advance in rank. He has a lot of baggage, the guy.
Yeah, he's got a whole lot of baggage, plenty of baggage to go around and everything like that. So he's got all kinds of issues that he's dealing with and everything like that.
Yeah, with the previous Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, that guy got in trouble because he tried to hide that he had to go into the hospital for some kind of medical procedure and was out of commission for the better part of a week. And he also had to get special permission to become Sec Defense because he'd been too recently a 3-star, 4-star general, and you're not supposed to go straight from the military into that position because there's supposed to be some distance. So you're not your military mindset. So anyway, the previous Secretary of Defense, he got in trouble for being too qualified and being a little bit too dedicated to the job to the point where he'd hide like medical. So I'd rather have a guy like that in charge than a guy like Hegseth. Hegseth had to pay a mom $50,000 because she accused him of drunkenly sexually assaulting her in a hotel hot tub. The Hegseth got fired from leadership positions at 2 military charities for being drunk and out of control, for financial mismanagement, not being able to run an organization. He's a mess, that guy.
He's definitely in trouble in that sense and everything. By the way, I did see that Barack Obama has admitted that as affected.
So you're breaking
I think
up
Michelle
there.
was wanting him. Can you hear me?
Now I can, yeah.
Yeah, I did hear that Barack Obama was admitting that Donald Trump has affected his marriage to Michelle and everything like that, because apparently he was hoping that they were going to have some quiet time, but because of him being like the face of the Democratic Party, that she was not too pleased with that and everything like that. So he was admitting that it is not always leading to any divorce or anything, but they did admit to some tensions And I think y'all have data centers in California, but apparently we just passed in Durham a 60-day moratorium on data center development. So there will be no data centers built here for 60 days. Now they may build
I'm
them
sure we
later.
do. So here's breaking news. Ted Turner, the guy who created the first 24-hour cable news channel, CNN, has just died at the age of 87. Now, this is a guy
Right.
who is indirectly
I think I did.
responsible for a lot of our current woes because 24-hour news has helped break a lot of our brains. You know, when did he create CNN? Anyway,
Because I had a friend who worked there in the 80s, so it's probably the 80s and the 70s.
all right, so we know Fox News has been around, I think, a little longer than 30 years. CNN was the first of that kind. So yeah, either late 70s, early 80s, and we know that those channels, like they cater to political leanings and they increase political leanings, and they wipe out the center. They drive people either to the left or to the right. We were a more centrist. There were more people in the middle before we had 24-hour news stations.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that changed about the news. I was actually on social media talking about that earlier because I was remembering, I don't know when you went to college, but when I went to college, there was not a lot of people that had TVs in their dorm rooms. There might have been a few, but this was the 80s and everything like that, but there weren't that many. So there were like some community rooms that were in the dorms that were kind of like the TV rooms, and they would become like where people would go to see big TV events like the Luke and Laura wedding and Who Shot JR. And
no, we went to school at about the same time, and most people didn't even have phones in their rooms.
Right.
You got a phone call you. They'd call you from the lobby. Somebody would go find you and say, "There's a phone call for you." And okay, CNN first broadcast June 1st, 1980. So it's been just under 46 years that we've had this.
We've had that.
Fox News was founded in 1996. So we've had 46 years of CNN, 30 years of Fox News. And while you're frozen, let's take a look at what else we have. So you may have mentioned this, that Trump is saying that there's White House officials are saying that the talks are with Iran to end the war is being boiled down to a one-page memorandum, which, among other things, includes Iran promising to stop enriching their uranium. To make a nuclear bomb, you got to take uranium and you have to spin it to separate the exploding uranium from the uranium that's not exploding. So in the past, Iran has had thousands of centrifuges, which are the spinning machines, because exploding uranium weighs 1% less than safe uranium. And so it takes a lot of spinning to separate it out, hours and hours and days and weeks, and repeated spinning out of this. So that's, let's see.
Looks like we've got a anti-racism claim coming from the New York Times. The U.S. is suing the New York Times, claiming discrimination against the white man. So the New York Times is being accused of discriminating against a white male editor. So Trump's EEOC is suing the New York Times, alleging discrimination against a white male employee and everything like that. So I do know that there have been accusations in the past of reverse racism. So we'll see what happens in that space. But the Trump administration is also asking fast-track training for new ICE recruits. So I guess that they realized that the training needs to be more detailed and not as fast as it's been. So they're thinking about doing that. And I see that your place is in the news because apparently a heavy snow falls in Denver, and definitely a Colorado snowstorm has intensified as they are forecasting some major snowfall. I think they were forecasting hail in the southeast, like around Louisiana and Mississippi. So there is some serious weather throughout the country, but it does look like the spring storm has caused travel impacts and power outages across the Denver metro area.
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up in Boulder, which is right up against the mountains. So, winter can show up as early as October with a couple feet of snow, or as late as May, or even June. When growing up, we would lose trees because, if for snowstorms, you want the trees to have no leaves.
Right.
And if a snowstorm hits while the leaves are still on the tree, the weight of the snow broke one of our trees, just split it right down the middle. And if a snowstorm hits, in May, it can wipe out a lot of the buds. But that's just weather.
That's weather. Weather's going to do what weather is going to do, as the old saying goes, and all along those lines. I did see there was a case of a gentleman. This was in the U.S. news that apparently was accused of killing a 7-year-old, and he was a former FedEx person, so he's just been sentenced to death for the murder of Athene Strand. So a former FedEx driver was sentenced to death for killing a 7-year-old Texas girl. So this is the murder that took place, and he just got the death penalty. And all along those lines, I'd heard they were thinking about, speaking of the death penalty, and I think this might be something that Trump and his courts were.
So you're frozen again.
So the firing squad.
All right, FedEx has 77,000 drivers in the U.S. So that's a lot of people, and you're going to have some dangerous a-holes among any group that large.
But still freezing, because what I was saying is that I had heard that they were thinking about bringing back some old-fashioned ways of executing people, including the firing squad in certain states.
Okay, so the issue is that there are drug cocktails that are pretty effective at A, killing people, and B, doing it so it's not a shit show. What you don't want when you're killing somebody is for them not to die, or for them to take a long time to die in a horrible way. It makes the state look like they're torturing somebody, and that's unconstitutional. Right. That's cruel and unusual punishment. But the drug companies do not want to supply. The drug companies want to be associated with life, not with death. So when the drug companies find out their drugs are being used to kill people, they refuse to supply them. And then the states that want to kill people have to figure out other ways to do it. And often it goes wrong.
Yeah, they got to figure out other ways, whether that's guillotines or whether that's other things like that. Kim, our founder, or one of the founders of the network, sent me a video, and the video was of a pitch competition that Mr. Allen, who is the one that did the shooting at the whole correspondence dinner, was at. But apparently at this same event was Usha Vance, which is the vice president's wife. And apparently it was like a wheelchair device that he was trying to pitch to give people greater access. But
you're saying it was like Shark Tank, that people would pitch their ideas, their inventions.
Right, but less like Shark Tank and more like the thing that Nick met Kim at, one of those like hackathon kind of things. So it was more like a conference, and I think it was in the West Coast, because I know he's in the West Coast. So it was out there, probably in California or Nevada, but you're pitching like your idea, but it's less like Shark Tank, but more like a hackathon.
Yeah, I think this guy, he was a trained he was a math tutor. He was trained. He had training in engineering. I think he was pitching a brake system for wheelchairs.
Right, I think it was the brake system for the wheelchairs. Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
So. Here he is. Let's Cole Allen.
Yeah, that was his name. Probably his name.
He went to Caltech, which is one of the top two
So it's Caltech.
math science schools in the country. Graduated in 2017. Also had a bachelor's degree, got a master's degree in computer science at Cal State Dominguez Hills last year.
Oh wow.
So smart guy, who I'm sure that people will argue that that I'm sure his defense team, because he could get life in prison for what he did. Now I don't know if all those charges will stick, because he fired a shotgun blast that hit a Secret Service agent without injuring him seriously, because the guy had a vest on. And he had a so I guess his manifesto says he wanted to take out some of Trump's cabinet. Anyway, I don't know. We'll find
out as the cases go on and as the trial continues. We'll see what happens in what kind of he gets and everything like that. Because I think Hinckley got a long sentence after he had tried to do his killing and all along those lines. But it does look like Trump, on his $400 million ballroom price tag, is saying it will be magnificent, safe, and secure. And the Republicans are proposing $1 billion in taxpayer dollars to secure Trump's ballroom. So they are definitely seeing that. And even the Democrats are eager to force on the ballroom, because that would be a lot of money to be gotten.
Kimmel ran down the history of what the ballroom was supposed to cost last night. Initially, Trump said it would cost $200 million. Then he raised it to $400 million, and he said it would be paid for with private contributions. And now they want $1 billion of taxpayer money, which nobody voted for. And it's bad timing with gas over $4.50 a gallon. And oh, you're freezing.
Okay. I don't know if I was freezing. I had a question for you based on a candidate that did win in Ohio and everything like that. And I'm trying to remember, didn't Vivek Ramaswamy run for president? Because
he did, and he won the Republican primary to be what?
Ohio governor.
Okay. Is he as terrible as some of these? He's not really MAGA, I don't think. He's got a tech background, right?
Yes.
So he might not be too terrible. Let's ask AI.
Yeah, ask AI who he is.
Ramaswamy. He's a billionaire. He's worth $2.5 billion. He made his money in biotech. All right. So Ramaswamy is endorsed by MAGA, by Trump.
By Trump.
He won the primary by focusing on cutting regulations and supporting crypto. Now, there's a big overlap between crypto guys and MAGA. It's one of these things where, I believe that you have to be ready to be kind of a sucker to be either MAGA or into crypto. That a lot of crypto stuff is based on faith, and a lot of there's no inherent value to most crypto products. It's just people agree that it's worth something, and then when people start selling the crypto in large amounts, the value drops to zero.
Wow.
So
drops down to nothing. I saw another story, which is apparently there's a rising toll of Florida's abortion ban, And of course, there's the case of trying to decide whether the abortion pill can be sent by mail or not. But apparently, it's causing problems even in terms of how people are handling pregnancies and all along those lines. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes, this abortion ban, because Florida was having a vote to end Florida's abortion ban. So to vote yes on looks like it was Proposition 4 or something like that.
So getting pregnant is a risky proposition, whether you continue with the pregnancy or not. And for early pregnancy, for when the morning after pill and associated stuff, if you're early on, the risk of those pills are much lower than carrying a pregnancy to term. So in any state, when states are telling people what they can and can't do around pregnancy, there are costs either way. You tell people, they can't get the morning after pill, they can't have abortions. Then you have people who run into problems with medical complications of like ectopic pregnancies, which can never be. That's where it's in your fallopian. The baby, the fetus, the egg didn't implant in the right place in your body, and and then the egg starts growing in your fallopian tubes, and that can wreck your fertility. That can destroy, that can make it so you can't ever get pregnant again. You need surgery. And if you're prevented from having that egg removed until you're, in critical condition because of abortion regs, that's a risk. That's one of the risks of telling people they can't get abortions.
Yeah, that's a big risk and everything like that. Sasha, back said my other half is you and everything like that. But I was just wondering, how safe do you feel as a Jewish person? Because they're saying there was a report earlier today that assaults against U.S. Jews has reached a 46-year high.
Yeah, this is
Jewish Americans reached a record high in 2025.
All right, so this is not a great time to be Jewish, though. America has 6 million Jews. About 2% of Americans are Jewish, and I think for most Jewish Americans, we don't run into anti-Semitism in our face every day. Though if you're on Twitter, if you're on X now, there's Elon Musk let all the anti-Semites back in. I reported a guy yesterday who, not for anti-Semitism, but for this guy had like dozens of tweets where he just flat out called people the N-word, and he didn't use the N-word, he used the actual word. And I reported a bunch of his tweets, and I'm waiting to hear back if that's enough to get him kicked off, at least for a while. Because Twitter under Musk is very, tolerant of hate speech. But it's even before the war in Israel, which is now 2.5 years old, violence and threats against Jews, according to the FBI, had tripled by by the Biden, by even before this latest, before the war started in 2023, and then with Israel acting like a dick, acting controversially, blowing up Lebanon, blowing up Gaza, killing, Israeli settlers, killing Palestinians on the West Bank. Before all this was, killing more than 200 journalists. Even before this, the anti-Semitism was on the rise, and now we have to contend with Israel being dicks. I talked to my kid and who lives in England, and Anti-Semitism is on the rise there, along with anti-Muslimism. That, you know, Brexit was the Brexit, where England left the EU, the European Union, which was a terrible move for Britain's economy. It used to be the EU, belonging to the EU means that you can travel, you can do commerce with few barriers. And it's great for the member countries, but idiots convinced other idiots to vote to have England pull itself out of the EU. And that was a victory for racists. It was a victory for Russia, who supplied much of the propaganda. And that same thinking that England is being, racist Brits are being told that Muslims and dark-skinned people are overwhelming England, which is not true. England is 83% white. Right. The U.S. is only 56% white. And so for England to have a racial panic is dumb, is mobilizing dumb people to think dumb stuff.
I hear what you're saying. I had a friend that's actually one of our people connected to the network that were thinking about moving to a town here in North Carolina, a town with an interesting name. It's actually named after a vermin called locust and everything like that. But I don't think that they're going to move there because it's a very homogenous town. I think the town is like 93% white. And even though there is a white woman, they like to be in a diverse community. So this community in Locust, which is near Charlotte, is not diverse at all. I think it's got like 2% black population and maybe 2% Hispanic and maybe like another percent of others. But it's definitely not very homogenous and everything. This is for both you and Jacoby, because I know y'all follow sports and all along those lines. But do sometimes the women's sports get kind of overshadowed, not by their skill set, because we know there's some great women basketball players, there's some great women golfers and everything like that. I think there's even a women volleyball championship that's getting ready to come up this week and everything like that. But sometimes the social media gets too caught up on their outfits, because they just had the first major victory in golf, and Nelly Korda won it. But even one of the articles I was reading in one of the golf publications was saying that if you look at the comments, people were more worried about what her outfit was than her skill, because apparently she had an amazing golf game, but they were saying it looked more like gym wear than golf wear. So they got too hung up on what her clothes looked like and versus her skill.
Boners get all tangled up in women's sports fandom. The WNBA is, if you look at WNBA player thirst traps online, it's a little crazy in that I don't know that NBA players do thirst traps, that they're out there posing in a hot tub in a Speedo. Probably not, right? Maybe a few players, but a high percentage of WNBA players, will post bikini pictures and dressed all sexy and stuff, and it's weird. That there are a couple mid-level LPGA players who have built careers out of dressing hot and looking hot. There are issues with tennis, women's, and it's like, Jacoby, talk about this stuff.
You're on mute. You're on mute.
It's just about being in control of who you are and your sexuality. That's really all it is.
Right. And just showing exactly. Speaking of control and narratives, apparently LeBron James is saying that he doesn't have any money and that he's broke. So he's claiming he's not a millionaire and his net worth is way less than Google indicates. So he was.
All right. Well, LeBron James is a smart, funny guy. And if you Google how much he's worth, now it'll kick you. Estimated about $1 billion. Now, it's hard to know where these estimates come from, but LeBron James is not always serious when he talks about stuff. And maybe he isn't worth $1 billion. Maybe he's only worth 150 million. But this is his 23rd year in the NBA. I'm sure that he is, unless he has the worst financial management team in history, he's worth at least 9 figures.
He's probably worth 9 figures, and he was teasing about it because he was on a podcast called 360 with Speedy on Complex, and he says, now y'all want me to start lying. Google search is a lie. It's way less. I got a couple of thousand in my bank. That's it. I got a couple of thousand. I am free from me. Everything I got on free. This LeBron edition, Richard Millie, free. You see my wedding band? It says my queen, free. Hat, wave cap, Durag, free. And then I ain't got no money, man. My kids got all the money now. NILs, name, image, and likeness rights. And they got all the money. They take care of dad now. I'm broke.
So no, he's kidding. Also, he thinks it's nobody's business what he's worth, and he probably thinks that it's a security risk for people to look at him and think that there goes $1 billion. He has the right to obfuscate about his net worth. There are long-standing rumors that he spends $1 million a year to maintain his body, and which helps justify. I mean, because this is he's lasted more years in the NBA being effective. Last night he scored 28 points. He was the leading scorer in a not quite a blowout. The Lakers kind of hung with the Thunder for a little bit. Austin Reeves was out with a strained oblique muscle, one of your side muscles, and he just came back recently and shot terribly. At one point, he shot 1 for 10 and was like 0 for 6 from 3. And if it hadn't been for Reeves's terrible shooting, it could have been a game. I think they lost by 18 points, but at one point they were down only 65 to 69. So they probably never could have won, but they could have kept it closer. And LeBron had a great game for a guy in his 23rd season. I think this was his 299th playoff game, something like that. The next highest number of playoff games of anybody in history, 251. So he's, and so, yeah, it makes sense that he would spend $1 million a year with his own medical team, his own chefs, a team of trainers, who knows, nutritionists, who knows what else. Jacoby, tell me everything I got wrong there.
The game wasn't close at all.
Okay.
Because
watch,
the reason it wasn't close is because not the fact that it was 18 points, but they were never threatened.
Okay.
Because you watch the game, the closest they got was
because I'm cheap. We're trying to keep our cable bill under $300 a month, so we had to get rid of a bunch of channels, and that includes getting to watch the Lakers.
Because they were never really within.
That can't get expensive.
They were really within no striking distance. There was no doubt that game Oklahoma City was going to win, because they were feeding the big man down low. Then SGA went off in the fourth quarter. It kind of played out how everybody thought.
Okay.
But, yeah, that series it may go a gentleman's sweep, but it also could go a sweep.
A gentleman's sweep.
Speaking of sweeps and everything like that, I got a question for you. Yeah, I got a question for you, Jacoby, and I know you're more into basketball than hockey, and I'm not into hockey, but I heard a player make a mistake. At least I think it's a mistake and everything like that. But I just want to hear your thoughts, because I was watching the game after the Canes won. They're up 2-0, and they're going to Philadelphia. And as they were being interviewed, one of the stars, and I forgot which star, says, "We hope that we don't see you again until the next round," which implies that you're going to sweep like you did the last team. That to me is giving fuel to the Flyers. You're basically saying to them that you want to not come back to Raleigh, win in Philadelphia. So if they at all the locker room.
You broke up a lot.
I don't know y'all's thoughts around that, but yeah, I'm just thinking that was
you've been spotty for the hour. So you got to ask the question again.
No, just saying. It sounded to me like there was one of the Kane players that was basically saying that he was not wanting to come back to Raleigh. So he's implying that they're going to sweep the team that they're playing. And if I was a member of the Flyers, I'd be posting that all over the locker room and everything like that, because it was after they went up 2-0 and everything like that. But that to me was a drastic publicity mistake.
I mean, that's what everybody says. I mean, you're trying to literally sweep. You can't go out and say, well, I want to let them get bet. No. You're going to talk junk. You play the game and you're trying to bring that smoke. That's all it is.
Okay. That makes sense. I can understand that. What else are you seeing in the news from Drudge? We got about another 10 minutes, and I'll see what's going on with my spot.
So we mentioned that Ted Turner, the guy who started CNN,
Yes.
just dropped dead at age 87. And we talked about how, cable news, 24-hour news, has been a corrosive influence in America. Because it hardens, it drives people away from the center and to the left and to the right. And in a lot of cases, it fills willingly gullible people's heads with bullshit. Like a lot of people who watch Fox News probably don't believe everything, if they thought about it, everything they see on that channel. But they're willing to, pretend they believe what they see and hear. A lot of MAGAs know that Trump is full of shit, but they will go ahead and pretend that he's not full of shit. And you couldn't, if it weren't for Fox, now Fox News only, it averages about 3 million viewers for a lot of its shows. So that's 1% of America watches Fox News on the regular. But their influence extends beyond that tiny percentage. And the other cable channels, CNN, MSNBC, their viewership's even lower because the lib channels split lib viewers. Fox has all the conservative viewers. And when you have a favorite cable news channel, you are investing in a certain amount of bullshit that that it means you're probably not gonna fact check what you hear on a channel. You're just gonna take it for granted. When you talk with people, when you post on social media, you're just gonna pass on what you've been told. And that whole thing, the whole social media, cable news, thought bubble is bad for us. But it's hard to see how we're going to get rid of any of that.
Y'all just see we're going to get rid of that. I just saw that one of the, and this was from a couple of weeks ago, one of the music singers that had been at the Bulldog Blues Festival has passed away, that being Barbara Carr. So it looks like she passed away sometime ago, but she was a legendary singer, and now they're dealing with, I guess, the music.
Well, let me say one more thing before we go on. If I were dictator, if somebody put me in charge of everything, I would make all the news channels run a fact check lower third, or somewhere, some part of the screen would be a real-time fact check that you'd have somebody, Laura Ingraham or Hannity, saying stuff, and then in one part of the screen there'd be a crawl and with the actual statistics as best as we could. The Hannity says one thing, and then we put up what the actual statistics are. Trump says that he's got 100% approval in a poll among Americans. And then on the side of the screen, we say, well, A, there's no evidence of this poll, or B, maybe this poll was only of MAGA Republicans. So for the people who want to, fill out their understanding, expand their understanding, and not just take the bullshit straight, they could just look at part of their screen. But I can't see that ever happening.
I can't see that either. Go ahead.
Oh, you didn't talk about the California debate last night?
Because I didn't watch. I'm terribly for somebody who's
I asked about it. He didn't watch it, and I didn't watch it. What was your impression? Did you watch it?
I mean, I watched parts of it. I didn't watch much of it. It was interesting. Who was the Republican candidate? I mean, nobody really tripped over themselves or made an impression.
So the main problem that everybody's been talking about, and this is the extent of my knowledge, is that there are too few Republicans running against too many Democrats. You got two main, Chad Blanco, who's a sheriff, who's MAGA, Steve Hilton, who's kind of a Fox News guy, are the two Republicans. And then you got 5, 6, 8 Democrats in the mix. And we have what's called a jungle primary, which is the top 2 vote getters, regardless of party, are the 2 candidates who have a runoff. And people are afraid that the many Democrats will split the vote, and the 2 Republicans will get the most votes, so we'll be guaranteed a Republican governor.
The last Republican governor was it?
We've had Republican governors in the recent past. Schwarzenegger served 1.5 terms as governor. He replaced a Republican named Gray Davis. Did these guys destroy the state? No. California is a big enough economic juggernaut. It's like New York City. Is a socialist mayor going to change New York City? No. So it's not the worst thing in the world. Chad Blanco, who can't win, but he's kind of a dickhead. Steve Hilton probably would be less of a dickhead. I think the leading Democratic candidate is Tom Steyer, who's a not very charming billionaire who's spending tens, hundreds of millions maybe on this campaign. He seems like a pretty reasonable guy. Katie Porter is another Democratic candidate who was great in the House of Representatives, but less great campaigning for governor. She's got a reputation for being mean to her staff. Anyway,
speaking of being mean and everything like that, and we only got about 1.5 minutes to go, but are y'all ready? And this is both you and Jacoby, for there to be a reprieve of The Apprentice with Don Jr. being the potential host, because that's what they're looking at, because apparently they're thinking about him being the host, and they're going to reprieve The Apprentice and everything like that. So are we ready for another Apprentice?
So that was a hard show to watch. The Apprentice only had it ran between the regular Apprentice and then the Celebrity Apprentice. It only had that show. They had about 20 seasons and only had decent ratings for the first 2 seasons, because people saw what it was. It was a bunch of D-list celebrity dickheads being dickheads, and there's that it didn't pull enough. It was, for most of its run, it was like 59th in the ratings, 120th, 40th. I think it only cracked the top 20 in its very first season. You could put Don Jr. in a reboot of The Apprentice, but you couldn't put it on network TV because it wouldn't pull network numbers. You'd have to put it on, a smaller channel. I don't think it could even pull Bravo numbers. I don't know where you'd put it.
Maybe we'll put it on Pod TV, but we'll let Jacoby host it.
I'd watch that.
A lot of people would watch that and everything like that. But as we get ready to get out of here, I was talking to one of our sponsors that brings us guests, because I think he's going to be bringing us a couple of guests next week and like that. So Harlan Bowl gives me some great guests. But I think who shot JR from way back in the day and everything like that. He actually won some money because I think he was in college during that time, Rick, everything, because he actually randomly picked Mary, who was the person that shot
So you're talking about, you're breaking up, you're talking about the primetime soap opera Dallas, where the most evil character on the show was named J.R. Ewing, played by Larry Hagman, the astronaut from I Dream of Jeannie. And there was at the end of one season, somebody shot him, I guess, in the stomach, and it was a cliffhanger whether he'd live or not. And then the whole next season was who shot him, because it was a big deal. It was back when we only had 3 broadcast channels and not a lot of cable, and all of America at least knew about it, and you might have gotten 20-30 million people tuning in, unheard of numbers now, to see the episode where they revealed who shot him. It was a big stupid deal.
It was a big stupid deal. And on that note, like I said, Harlan was telling me that I think he was in college at the time, and he won the bet because he just randomly picked somebody. He was not a fan of the show, so he just randomly picked the person, and the person he picked was the Mary Cosby character, who is the person that actually shot the JR. And I forgot what the title of her character was. He just randomly picked the person, which I found hilarious. He just randomly picked and won a few $100. But on that note, we're going to get on out of here. We got some more shows coming up, including Modern Investment, where we'll be hearing about NVIDIA and other things from Sasha at 1 o'clock. I think he'll be joined by Jim Ead, and we'll see who else joins him on that particular show and everything like that. And then we've got Weed Wednesday coming up at 3 o'clock with Jeff Eichen and everything like that. So he'll be talking about some of the weed reform programs that are going on and some of the things that have been in that space and all along those lines. And then we've got Follow the Brand with Grant McGaugh coming up at 7. So there are a number of great shows getting ready to come up on the network. So stay tuned and hear some of these other shows.
Then at 6, we've got the Apprentice reboot with Jacoby.
Exactly. We'll have that reboot with Jacoby and everything like that. Speaking of reboots and everything, have you picked up a date for, because I know your model couldn't do it on Saturday. Have y'all figured out Wednesday or Thursday for
No, I'll get it together. JD just got back to town. Our director, cinematographer, so we'll figure it out.
Yeah, because I know the model said she could not do, I guess, Saturday, but that was a while back, so maybe she can do it again now. But
yeah, well, I'll in the next couple days, I'll see if I can get it together to figure out the next shoot date.
All right, sounds good. On that note, we're going to get on out of here.
All right, thanks. Bye.